Hello, everyone. Wednesday, July 5th, 2017. I hope everybody had a happy and safe 4th of July weekend. Now, I didn't do a video last week. I'll touch bases on that in just a little bit. But a lot of the stores in the town didn't get their books today because of the 4th of July holiday. But my regular shop I go to is like, yeah, I paid extra to get them in on Monday, so I got them. So fantastic. So I will touch bases on just a couple of books I picked up in the last couple of weeks. This really isn't going to be like a comic book video, but I picked up this book last week. This is Zombie Tramp number 36, a coffin cover, which I liked. And they came out with a new storyline today called Origins Zombie Tramp. Of course, Mendoza being local here in Las Vegas always sells well. This was the cover for that book. This is kind of homage to the original Zombie Tramp comic he did, which is real hard to find. He had multiple covers of this book, like he always does, and most of them are pretty cool. But I'm not going to show all that because I'm kind of cut for time and I want to get to some other things. The book that came out today that a lot of people were buying, Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe again. Of course, the original Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe sells really well, holds a really good value, and people always look for it. So I thought I'd grab it, but there was a lot of them on the shelves, and it's not going to be that difficult to find. Now, last week, I get calls on this book every day. Last week, this book came out, and people were like, oh, it's going to be a stupid book. Very limited book, very hard to find first print, Batman and Elmer Fudd. Say what you want. This book flew off the shelves. Try to find that one. There were some other ones they did with Looney Tunes. You can find those. You cannot find that one. Look what it's doing on eBay, and the book is just going through the roof. So I am not selling that yet. I'm just going to hold on to it because it's just going to keep going up. So it's just something to put up on my wall, the dog shit wall that it is, as it relates to the CGC board and the guy who said that. So I didn't do a video last week because last weekend I went to Amazing Con here in Las Vegas. Of course, Stan Lee is the big guest there. They also had Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld was there, Kevin Eastman was there, a host of other artists that were pretty good, and I'll get to that in a minute. Now, in years past, Amazing Con has always been a decent show, and I went on Friday because I had a friend who bought a booth. He was going to sell some books. I told him, hey, I'll stop by, say hello, give you a little support, check out the show, maybe pass out some business cards. And it was crowded. It was like a Saturday crowd there on a Friday. And I thought, okay, lines move super fast. You zipped right in as soon as the doors open. That wasn't the issue. The issue was once you got in, the aisles were so narrow. It was hard to maneuver because there was real no rhyme or reason. People coming every which way. There wasn't a whole lot of room. You're bumping into people. The tables were kind of congested. So if you went in, like my friend's place had a table and he had two tables on the side. So it was like a little U shaped, like a cul-de-sac. And if you had 2 or 3 people in there, you couldn't get to look at books. You had to stand out in the aisle, wait for someone to leave, and go back in. Now, Amazing Con was a very successful show this year. I thought they did a really good job, but I think they could have done a better job of laying out the aisles. You could have added 3-4 feet on each side and have plenty of room still because there was a lot of dead space in the back where they were doing the photo opportunities, where Stan Lee was. Where Stan Lee was, he had his area, and then there was just nothing but open space around him. Like that was like the Beverly Hills of the show. And so they could have done a better job. Now, talking about Stan Lee, I'm certainly not going to say anything bad about Stan Lee. The man is iconic. He is one of the great comic book people in the industry of all time. Whether you agree with the things that he does or doesn't, you can't say anything bad about him. But he charges a lot of money for an autograph. That is his privilege. He's earned that right to be because he's Stan Lee. I'm not going to argue that fact. But I'm watching him sign these books. I just thought I'd stand there and take a look at him. And I'm watching him sign these books. And we're not talking about just cheap books. I saw 2 Amazing Fantasy 15s getting signed, a ton of Amazing Spider-Man number 1s, Fantastic Four ones, and the one thing they all had in common was the signature was terrible. It was a terrible looking signature. He never had a great signature to begin with, but at least years ago it would say Stan Lee, and you can tell it was Stan Lee. Now, if you've seen a lot of his signatures now, because his hand shakes, no fault of his own. The man's 90 years old. I probably won't live to be 90, so you know he's got one up on me on that. But his signature just kind of runs together with the ink they use, the Sharpie pens, and that thing just runs together. It's like a blob. It's like a black blob on your book. Why would you take a book like AF-15 or Amazing Spider-Man 1 or Avengers 1 or some of these other great, great books and have an ugly signature put on it? If you graded his signature is like a 2, a 2.5 at best. Now, Todd McFarlane, on the other hand, beautiful signature. The problem with that is the line from McFarlane, because he was giving 2 free signatures to anybody who wanted them, and then you could buy additional signatures after that. But his line, people are saying like 3 hours to get a signature of Todd McFarlane. I'm sorry. I'm not going to stand in line 3 hours to get a signature. Now, McFarlane has a great signature. It's the beautiful T, the beautiful F. Nice. And of course, everybody was getting Spawn 1 signed. A lot of the Batman stuff was getting signed. I like the year 1, year 2 stuff, things like that I enjoy. He was just getting tons of things. So, of course, whenever you get big artists that come in there, you're going to have people selling the big artist books. Now, unlike years past, there was a lot of comic book sellers at this, which was refreshing because you had an opportunity to actually walk around and maybe find a book. Now, if you have purchased books at major shows, not small local shows, you can find things, but major shows, you're going to pay a premium for any decent book. An example is, I can't think of the book off the top of my head. It's the Incredible Hulk McFarlane cover with, Incredible Hulk and Wolverine's claws. And this guy had maybe 15 of them. And so I asked him, what are you asking on the book? And he said, well, they're all different. Low end is 100. High end is 2.25. And he shows me the 2.25. So let me see the 2.25. Let's see what your 2.25 version looks like. And he's like, this is 9.8. And you take it right to, you get McFarlane to sign it, take it to CGC, money in the bank. I said, okay, let me look at it. And right out of the box, without even looking, I see 3 ticks on the spine. That's not a 9.8, I'm sorry. And again, we've talked about this in the past, people grading books at a certain level and not getting the grades because you're going to get the books in, and I'll get to something in a minute on that. But I was able to find a couple of books that I'm going to be able to flip at a really good price. But as far as like everybody else, most of the books were really overpriced. And again, that's status quo because you spend a lot of money to get a booth. I think my friend's booth was like $1,100 for the little area he had, but he had some really nice stuff, and he was just blowing it out because he had some of the iconic books at good prices. He prices his books really, really well, and he was making, pretty good money. I think he had a pretty good show. But again, I'm not going to spend money like that for books. I'd rather take a road trip to California and haggle with shops to try to get some books on that. So staying with overall, the Amazing Con was very good this year. A little congested, but you know what? If you fix the aisles and you get a better selection of food, because when I'm walking around, after a couple of hours, I want to get something in my stomach, slice of pizza, hot dog, something. All they had was like sandwiches. It was like capriotti sandwich, and I'm not going to pay $12 for a little 6-inch sub. I'm sorry, some people do. I will not do that. But overall, I enjoyed the show. I look forward to it again next year. I hope they fix some of those things. Of course, one of the sad things that happened was, of course, Adam West and Burt Ward were supposed to be there. Burt Ward was there, but of course, Adam West passed away a week prior to that show, and they still had his booth up. Adam West, Batman 66. And that was kind of sad to see that, knowing that he wasn't going to be there. So, overall, a really good show. I enjoyed it. So, staying with the convention theme, I read an article tonight as I was just flipping through stuff. And there was an article from Mile High who stated that they are not going to do the Comic-Con in San Diego this year. And I said, okay, well, let me read the article. Why? Because they've been doing it for about 44 years. They were one of the first ones in 1974 that were selling it. And now, I've mentioned things about Mile High in the past, but if you look at the history of Mile High, there is no doubt that they are one of the grandfathers of, the comic book selling industry. And they are a powerhouse as it relates to comics, and they need to be at the Comic-Con. And they brought this up, but this is one of the things I don't like about Mile High. It's never their fault. No matter what they talk about, it's never their fault they're not doing something. The article is basically blaming Comic-Con for all the issues. you don't advertise enough the comic books. You bring in too many TV people. You charge too much. I couldn't get my books in. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. You weren't nice to me. No one came to my booth and said, "Hey, I'm sorry. Is there anything I can do for you?" Basically looking for people to kiss their ass because they're mile high. Look, everybody knows who you are. The booths were expensive. I think he said for a 70-foot spot, it was like $16,500 last year. It was $18,000 this year. It's a shitload of money. But when you're selling books at $5,000, $7,000 in a pop, it's a lot of coin. If you're going to be the granddaddy, and they are probably one of the top 3 big sellers in the country, no denying that. Their space up in Colorado is immense. It is a monster warehouse with all kinds of stuff in there. But if you're not going to do the show, bow out gracefully and don't sling mud and say, "We're not doing this because it's their fault." No, you made the decision not to do it. You could have paid and had your booth and done it. That's up to you. Market dictates. Now, I understand that there's not a lot of foot traffic for comic books, and the comic books have kind of been pushed aside. But that's been going on for 5, 6, 7 years now. And we talked about that years ago, that this is what was happening. So, you can't see the writing on the wall. Negotiate a price. You have enough power to where you could have contacted Comic-Con and said, "Look, you need to do more for us. We didn't have a good year last year because of, different snafus that occurred. What are you going to do for me?" You could have done that, but you don't. Instead, you write a letter to people saying, "We're not going to be there because they're mean to us." Okay, well, that's your perception. Very poor perception on your part. But again, they have a big name and they're entitled to their opinion, and they can do that if they want. I just think it makes them look petty. So there's that. Again, the CGC video that I did had a lot of support. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I know CGC didn't like it. When I walked by the booth at Amazon, I was wearing one of my Arkham shirts, and someone yelled, "Hey, go do a video." Okay, well, that just shows you how petty you were. So we're not going to touch bases on that. So I've been getting a lot of calls and feedback and messages, and people come into the shop and say, "Hey, why don't you sell on eBay and do this and do that?" I really don't like to do that because I've had issues with eBay in the past, but I have decided that I am going to have a small eBay store, and it's going to be called Arkham Comics Las Vegas. That is the eBay store. And I am not going to sell vintage books. I am going to sell variants, new books, just try to get a feeler out there. Maybe some, key books that people might want to look for. Everything is going to be a buy it now, though. I'm not going to do auction house on it. I'm going to offer free shipping on the buy it now. So when you get it, you don't have to pay for shipping. Shipping is going to be included. This is just a way for me to try to get some feelers out there to see if maybe I want to expand onto this. And so Arkham Comics Las Vegas on eBay is going to be a couple of days, but I think I'm going to start with some of the adult covers because those things sell really, really well. And I want to put some up and just, again, try to get a feeler on what I think may or may not work. Now, a couple of things with that, though, when I start doing that is I'm not going to be able to sell internationally yet because I want to get kind of comfortable with the, U.S. market. So no international sales. I apologize for that. And no vintage books right away. You want to get some of the vintage, you got to come to the shop. I have also done a Twitter page, which is Arkham Comics LV. And again, it's just going to be updates. It's another way to contact me. It's going to be updates. I'll put pictures up there. I started that yesterday or the day before, and I got some stuff up there. So if you're on Twitter, take a look at it, subscribe to it. I just want to expand into this community. If you're ever in Las Vegas, stop by and say hello at the shop. You don't have to buy nothing. Just come by and BS. I love doing that. I think it's great. So, again, I'm kind of all over with this. I didn't really show a lot of books. I want to touch bases on some other things. So, not really rants, just more observations than anything.